Good afternoon, everybody, to our panel discussion on how data science is transforming NeoBanking. And this is being organized by Kaggle Mukhopadhyay and Team, India's first and largest Kaggle-based meetup community. Today, we have a few industry experts from the neobanking industry and from as well as the fintech and lending industry. So today, first of all, we have Japan Doshi. Japan currently heads technology at Rupeek, where he heads a talented team spanning product, design, engineering, and data science. At Rupeek, he is driving the product and engineering strategy to build the digital multi-asset backed lending platform with the largest network of lenders and merchants to serve credit needs of millions of Indians. Prior to Rupeek, he spent nearly a decade at Amazon in various technology roles. During his tenure, he led technology for Amazon Pay and helped build global products including cloud photos, recommendations, and Amazon App Store. His inventions around the areas of recommendations and OS compatibility have earned him a few patents in the US. After spending over 12 years in the US, his passion for building consumer products for millions of Indians drew him back to the country. He holds a master's degree in computer science from North Carolina State University. Welcome, Japan.
Thank you.
Next, we have Suvajit Mukhopadhyay. Suvajit has 14 years of industry experience and is the winner of Next 100 Award winner in 2020. He is currently working as a Deputy Vice President, IT Strategy and Enterprise Architecture at Bandhan Bank. He has architected and led large-scale enterprise digital transformation projects for organizations all over the world. He specializes in enterprise architecture, IT strategy, enterprise integration, business process management, enterprise automation, data science, and AI. He is a trainer and a mentor, having trained more than 100,000 learners in data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, computer vision, soft computing, reinforcement learning, etc. He is also a speaker at a lot of conferences related to data science, analytics, and various tenets of digital transformation. Welcome, Suvajit. Then we have Aditya Sharma. Aditya is an alumni of Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, with double majors in marketing and entrepreneurship, and holds a BTech degree in computer science. His 9 years of experience involves leading business and product strategy functions across media, ERP, SaaS, B2C, and B2B domains. He led the business team and strategy at Optotax, India's first compliance SAS SaaS startup, scaling the platform from 0 to 550,000 users in 2.5 years. After Optotax was acquired by Open, he leads the business team for the Contextual banking division. Welcome, Aditya. Then we have Siddhaarth. Siddhaarth has 5 years of experience in the analytics industry and currently works as a senior product analyst at fintech unicorn RazorpayX. He has worked with several Fortune 500 clients across various sectors like FMCG, finance, and real estate to assist them in developing their data strategy and implementation. In 2019, he joined RazorPay as the first product analyst on the neobanking product RazorpayX. Recently, he was selected to attend the Yanqing Global Symposium hosted by Peking University, Beijing, for his work on application of analytics in the Indian fintech industry. He firmly believes that data analytics can generate actionable insights that drive forward the financial inclusion story in India. His other passions include mental health and public policy. He is the recipient of numerous fellowships, including a Swedish University's YCF Fellow, one Young World Ambassador, and a Young Leadership for Active Citizenship Fellow. Welcome, Siddharth. Then we have Umang. Umang has 8+ years of experience as a product manager in the banking fintech industry, and his expertise is in the digital initiatives, project execution, lending for the MSME domains, and CASA products. He is currently taking care of NeoBanking project for Kotak Mahindra Bank. He also has a deep understanding on NeoBanking. He brings with him a strong sense of product management, and he graduated from the Birla Institute of Management Technology. Welcome, Umang. I welcome all of you on
Thank
behalf
you,
of
Ellen.
Kaggle Days Meetup Delhi NCR, and the stage is all Umang's because he would be the moderator for today's session. All the best.
Thank you, Ayon, for giving this opportunity. I welcome you all for this specific session on neobanking and data science. Before we jump into the exact topic of the day and the entire thing, I would like to first discuss and have a bit of a discussion on what's neobanking and why we are having this specific discussion today. So I would ask my friend Japan to please just share a few thoughts on why neobanking and what is actually neobanking, why we are discussing neobanking and it's becoming so important today.
Yeah, thanks, Umang. So I think if you look at the best way to look at neobanking is first start look at some of the challenges we have with the traditional banking in India. If you look at banking as an industry, given Indian population, all of you must have experienced going to the bank branches to deposit cash, standing in the queue, trying to apply for a loan, and trying to meet multiple kind of officers in the bank. It's a very painful experience to do any task, all the way from depositing cash, withdrawing cash, to getting a loan. And I think what has happened in last a decade with the evolution of technology, or what we realize, industry has realized, is a lot of this can be just built digitally. So idea is, how do you today's customers who want convenience, speed, agility, the best-in-class customer experience, how do we leverage this technology and offer a bunch of the services that customers want completely digitally, where customers don't have to step out of their home, and they can pretty much do every single activity which they would expect from a bank online, which includes things like doing your opening an account, which can be done digitally, depositing your money, withdrawing your money digitally, because now you can withdraw your money and pay your bills online, to applying for loan. All of this done completely digitally. And neobank is the term that is used for whole set of fintech companies that are out there who are offering a range of financial services in a nutshell.
Thanks, Japan. Suvajit, would you like to add a few points on this?
Yeah, so I think just to add to what Japan started with. So think of neobanking as banking services minus the physical presence of a bank. So we can say that we need banking, but do we really necessarily need a bank anymore? It's like getting the bank and its related services in an app for you. So you can pay your bills, you can buy third-party products like, say, an insurance or mutual funds, you can do payments, you can pay your bills, open your account, do your KYC validations, change everything without being physically present in a branch. Even if you see how accounts are getting opened these days, so you just log into neobanking platforms, fill up your form, submit your KYC documents, and even do a video KYC, so that the entire journey can be made digital. So that's one aspect from the customer perspective. From the bank's perspective or fintech perspective, it opens up an avenue of opportunities where they can do a lot of upselling, cross-selling, and they can actually move from traditional bank to being a financial advisory services to the customers. So it's, in a nutshell, it's like bank in an app where you get all the banking services plus without being physically present in a bank branch.
Very simply put forward by Suvajit. Actually, in 1994, the Bill Gates actually mentioned this specific point. We need banking, but we don't need banks anymore. And I think with the help of neobanking, this entire concept is coming to the realization. Maybe it would have taken more time, but yeah, finally we are at that stage. Great. So now we understand the neobanking. Let's move to the today's topic, which we wanted to discuss: how data science specifically can help and transform this entire neobanking space. What these digital-only banks actually need to do to crack this data science piece. I would like to get into some specific points on this. For example, businesses usually expect some tangible output or some return on investment. How the data science as an investment can bring those values, those real values, and how do businesses perceive them in the new banking context? Is data science relevant for the new banking space, and how it can add value and give the return on investment? Aditya, I will request you to put some points on this.
Right. Thanks, Umang. So, if you look at technology investments by consumer-facing tech platforms, any investment is valued by three major factors: whether it's helping in acquisition, number one, or it's helping in distribution, or it's helping in monetization. Right, either of these three. So, as adding to what Japan and Suvajit said, that neobanks are basically about leveraging technology and providing value-added services to customers, number one, and providing banking services without the trappings of the complexities of physical infrastructure, of the legacy infrastructure to the customers. So new banks are a novel concept in that sense, and currently the focus is on acquisition and distribution buckets. Now, the business value that is derived by data science is immense. So we all know that the fundamental paradigm of a successful marketing campaign today is personalized marketing, right? How deep you can go, how well you can classify your customer segments, number one. Then quickly identifying the critical metrics of each customer segment. What is my CLV? What is my typical customer behavior for each segment? And what are the products that I can offer of value, right? And then finally crafting, setting up channels that can reach each customer touchpoint in a personalized way. Now, data helps in each of these stages, right? So today, for example, a neo bank that has access to GST data, which has been enabled legally by government to some of its legislations, can classify that these are the sales and purchase cycles of a typical business. And if we are offering a value-added services, say for example loans or working capital, right? So we can quickly set up products which are suitable for various business segments, right? Different from a pharma one, different from small manufacturing, different one for services. So that is the number one value which data science brings. Now, in terms of future potential, there are two key elements or advantages that data science brings to new banks offerings. One is, preemptive engagement of the customer in terms of upselling and cross-selling, number one, and two, support and fraud prevention. So I'll take one by one. So first thing is, traditionally a banking touch point is very push-based, right? As we keep seeing, right? We keep having these phone calls that you should buy loans, you should take the loan or take the credit card. That's all legacy framework. Today, when a business is making those B2B payments and a big ticket payment is coming up or a tax challan payment is coming up, maybe I need the working capital loan exactly at that point. And the neobanking platform, which has my transaction data, can utilize this to preemptively cross-sell, upsell, a capital product. Or, for example, if there is repeatedly loss of inventory and that is recorded into the inventory platform, say for example, you can integrate with the tally and a lot of inventory is being written off. So you can identify clusters where you can sell insurance, right? So these are the preemptive cross-sell and upsell opportunities that can be uncovered. They are being done now. They can be done much more in the future. And secondly is support, right? We can identify and track where customers are going wrong, where the risk profiles are increasing, and data helps in all of these. So these are the various advantages which data science brings in terms of business value.
Understood. It was really helpful. So largely to understand the customer from starting from the very basics, you need to start with data science, and it will help you in solving that specific basic question or to understand the customer. And then further, you can add on once you understand the customer with the help of data science, you can solve multiple problems of that customer. Siddharth, I would request you to put some points on the same point on the same question from your side. This is your own experience.
Hey, thank you. And I completely agree with the points that Aditya had made. So data science helps a lot in terms of cross-selling and upselling some of the services that we have. And specifically, one key point is NeoBank is something that's like a very new concept, not just in India, to be honest, across the globe, right? And it's essential to understand how do we pitch neobanks to customers. So different user profiles, different industries might have different needs for a neobank. For example, let's say you are a gaming platform or a lending platform, right? For you, the biggest need for a neobank would be something that offers you to make instantaneous payouts in a very quick point of time. So how do we identify these segments and target them accordingly? So that is one huge aspect, the entire customer acquisition part, right? And second is the customer engagement part of it. So for instance, like churn is a huge problem for not just a digital business, any business. But by virtue of being, traditionally, if you were a normal bank, right, like the turnaround time that takes for understanding that a customer has churned, or let's say they need to be re-engaged, how do you connect with them, is a pretty manual process, and it takes a lot of time. But through data science, what we can add value is proactively identifying, okay, is there some problem that a customer is facing? Like for instance, and addressing them in a manner that even before they realize that they're having a problem, coming up with a solution. A simple example that I could think of is that let us say that there's a customer who is facing a particular challenge, like based upon their data transaction that you can identify. Like for instance, let us assume that they are facing a challenge in making monthly payouts to their employees. Either it gets failed or taking a long time for them to do. We can cross-sell products to them proactively and say that, like we noticed that you are facing this problem. Would we be able to solve this through some of our products that we're offering? So this is one aspect that I feel neobanks have a huge leg up through their data science wings that, or let's say data science can contribute a huge way in neobanking platform, making sure that the customers are engaged, the customers are happy, and that they derive as much value that they can from our systems. So basically, like making sure that they are provided targeted stuff that they can use, basically looking at how we can make their experience more optimal. All that stuff, I think our data science team, analytics teams are having a huge impact.
Thanks, Ed. So you've covered actually the crux of the banking, the acquisition and retention. The entire customer revolves in this is the life cycle of that customer. So NeoBanking with the help of data science can solve that entire life cycle of the customer. Interesting point. Suvajit and Japan, feel free to add on the specific point from your side.
Yeah, I think how data science is actually started influencing this neobank space, and the biggest two drivers behind it are the huge explosion of data and the likes of open banking and the API ecosystem which has got developed is facilitating this entire journey. Now, as our previous friends said, so I'll just try to sum up in one word, in one sentence rather. So in this era, we want to target the right products to the right customers at the right place at the right time through the right channel. Right? I want to push my product to the person who needs it at the time he needs it, and even through the channel he needs it. I mean, suppose you're pushing a product to me through a Facebook ad and I'm not even a Facebook user. It's a waste of effort. Or I'm very I'm these days a lot of people are on WhatsApp and you're pushing a promotion to me through an SMS. I'll probably not even look at it. So it's all these things have to be stitched together. Right product, right customer, right time, right place, and right channel. Now, when it comes to data science, we all understand that data science can bring in two primary features. One is analysis and second is prediction and prescription. But in order to make that happen, we need first of all, access to the data. A second is we need the data itself, because it also comes with a huge storage and a lot of data exchanges between different systems. So these days the market is like pretty, I would say pretty even and open for anyone and everyone. I mean, in fact, if you look at the European regulation, open banking is like a norm now. I mean, everyone has to follow it.
Yeah.
And not far when it'll probably come to India. And when open banking comes to India, it's like the market is like pretty open for everyone. Anyone can access any data. And then once you get the data in house, then you can start doing this crunching, building these models, exposing them as APIs, constantly tuning this model, then doing model drift analysis and seeing if the model is behaving the same way it used to behave. And then probably you should be able to do the acquisition, servicing, as well as understanding the customer pain points, calculating RFM, CLTVs, and serving the customer in the right way through the right products at the right time. So I think that's where it's not only data, it's about the entire ecosystem of availability of the data, sharing of the data, acquisition of the data, and then crunching the machine learning, deep learning models to generate actionable insights, which can be further exposed as APIs, where different services and products and organizations can consume it.
True. So, Suvajit, you have made me remember my the lesson of marketing, 7 P's of marketing from my MBA. It is really helpful. And coming to the point, open banking is going to hit India. There's no doubt on that. The entire framework that is being going live, like account aggregators and etc. I would ask Kegel team to keep a separate discussions on that. But yes, open banking is coming up, and entire everyone is working on the APIs. And the new stack from government will continue to help in opening up this entire ecosystem. Japan, you would like to discuss you can continue to answer this topic, but I would also want you to touch upon on our next point specifically. Like we have discussed that these are the tangible ROI, whatever we can get and how we can get. But is there anything which is already done in terms of how your data science is getting used in the neobanking space or the neobanking market? Because the bit of the areas on the neobanking already 4 to 5 players are already live and all those things. So we have that understanding of the market. That market is already matured. Data science is already being used. And what are few things you feel that data science can be used in time to come? So Japan, over to you, please.
Sure. Yeah, I think if you look at any business today, specifically which are digital and which largely rely on giving customers great experience, there are multiple aspects that businesses look at. One is, how do I acquire customers at a lower cost, which I think folks earlier touched on it. How do I give the right products to customers at the right time, which folks also touched on. There are some interesting things where also data science can add value, especially in neobanking context. For example, credit scoring, underwriting, risk management, fraud management, and what I've noticed, at least in my experience here and last couple months at Rupeek and even before when I was at Amazon, if you take any part of your customer experience or process, you will see an opportunity to leverage data to improve that process or improve that experience or improve a specific metric. It need not be specific to any any specific use case, but in my experience, we've been able to apply it everywhere. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So if you look at customers, any neobanking platform, one of the key things that they want to do is retain customers. Or once the customers avail a service, one of the key objectives is, how do I retain the customer? So in our context, for example, we were trying to figure out once customers get a loan with us, how do we make sure that the customers keep coming back to us and renew their loan when they need more money. Now, traditional way is what you will keep calling customers again and again, annoy the hell out of customers, like, hey, do you want to renew, and it leads to very suboptimal customer experience, and to the point that customers may actually abandon your services. This is like a spam. What we've been able to do is build a data science-led model to predict for a given customer what is the propensity of customer on renewing their loan with us. And how do we build that propensity of the model is by looking at a lot of data that exists with us. So for example, we built a model which has 100 plus features. And one of the features is the how much customers have repaid their loan in a specific duration and time. And using that data, we are able to predict that if this amount is below X or below or above Y, this customer is likely to renew loan with us. And we've seen a massive amount of improvement in conversion, and not only that, just the customer experience improvement, right? Because now no longer you're spamming customer every day or every week. You're just trying to get to the customer at the right point and right time. Then another example is on the underwriting. Now, if we all know that a lot of neobanking, large part of the neobanking is about giving loan to customer, the lending to customer. Now, lending is a tricky business. And in unsecured lending, you have to look at customers' data in terms of their transaction behaviors, in terms of the spending patterns, to figure out what is the appetite for customers to pay. And you have to build certain models to figure out. India, I don't think yet has reached a high level of maturity when it comes to building models for unsecured lending. Now, what we have started doing is, in our context, we look at customers when they come to us, they get a loan against certain asset like gold or property, right? Now, imagine that how can data science further help customers get more loan? So imagine you're walking into customer's home and you're appraising the gold, but customers want certain amount of loan, and you're not able to give certain amount of loan because gold value is the amount of gold customers holding is, let's say, of certain value. But what you can do is actually look at customers' other aspects, right? In terms of his, what is his kind of apartment that he's living in? Does he have appliances at home? Look at his kids, which school they go to. Like, you can just start building a lot of this data, and when you build a lot of this data, it gives you a lot more signals than what you would otherwise get just from reading the bank statements or reading the customers' e-shopping kind of behavior. Now, what we've noticed is, using all this data, we have been able to actually increase customers' loan amount that the customers can get. Without data science, customers would, let's say, get 1 lakh loan, but we know that with all the other data, we know that the customer has certain potential to pay. We're able to, let's say, increase that amount by 20%, and it's a huge amount. It's a huge differentiator for customer, because that additional 20,000 can let customers buy what they need for their working capital or whatnot. So we talked about customer acquisition, we talked about customer retention, we talked about credit underwriting. Now you come to sort of fluctuations in the economics, right? So for example, what happens when you would have heard, many of you would have heard, there's a lot of customers defaults happen, NPS rise. Recent COVID scenario taught us that, right? So as soon as the COVID pandemic hit us, we noticed that a lot of customers suddenly lost job. Now, how do you predict that? It's very difficult to do that. So in our context, what we've been able to do is we've looked at gold prices, for example. Now, gold prices fluctuate a lot. When they fluctuate, it's humanly impossible for me to figure out whether they're going to go up or down and by how much. And it's very important for me to get that right. Otherwise, the defaults will spike, and you will have like a lot of defaulted portfolio. So this is again where data science can help, because if you just look at the past multiple years of data and mine that data, what you will realize is that gold prices are going in cycles, right? And this cyclical behavior you can't accurately predict it, because if I can accurately predict it, I don't need any other job. I can just use my data science model and just gold trading. So I don't want to be too optimistic, but we've been able to to reasonable approximation, we've been able to predict the trends, and using that trend, we are able to then give customers kind of loans. And lastly, there are some very interesting use cases where data science can help. I think these are something that can be experimented in neobanking sector, where you can actually improve customer experience also For example, today in our context, if you look at KYC, or when agents are going to customers' home, or when you do video KYC, I mean, there's a lot of time that is spent in doing KYC.
Yeah.
Or when we do the appraisal, there is a lot of time spent during appraisal. Now, customers are not they're not patient, right? Ultimately, they are busy. Everyone wants to, the reason they're choosing NeoBanking is they don't have time. They want in 5-10 minutes, they want to, avail the service. Now, obviously, this 1 hour, half an hour, 45 minutes kind of process won't work as we look forward. And this is where, again, data science can come in very handy. I mean, there's a lot of progress made in image recognition, in robotics and visual image processing and whatnot, where, what we're looking at is, how can we further basically improve customer experience by reducing the appraisal time, reducing the time it takes to do KYC. So, for me, I think the data science is so core to everything we do. And one misconception people have is, I do need to start from the building the machine learning models, which is not the case. I mean, in fact, in most of the cases, it's opposite. You first have to realize, and in fact, you need to have right data. Once you have right data, and honestly, believe me, in when I joined this company, and the buzzword was data science, and I dug deeper, and what I told the team was, guys, it will take 2 quarters just to get data right? So we had to build the data, we get to the data lake, data warehouse, get all the events consumed, and only then you can start analyzing. You hire some of the great analysts, and they can do wonders. They can mine data, they can spot patterns, and you work with the business stakeholders, and you really figure out which is part of the use case process where you're struggling. And now let me look at the data, build certain hypothesis, and based on this hypothesis, now I can do some rule-based processing to deliver value. And only then, once you have some initial value proven, you can actually try to solve it at scale. And that's where a lot of ML model and modeling, etc., comes in handy. So for me, I think there's a huge opportunity for data science in neobanking and in general any digital platform that we're trying to build.
Yes. Thanks, Japan. So we were not actually touching the entire lending part. We were all focusing on onboarding the customer and engagement. And thanks for touching this entire another aspect of entire banking, which is the lending, moving from liabilities to assets. Really great. And also, you have introduced very important term or important point here is alternate credit lending model or alternate credit modeling, which is only possible with the help of the alternate sources of data. So if a person doesn't have a PAN or an Aadhaar card or a CIBIL score, if I have to do the lending, how can I do it? I have to reach out to other sources of the data, and data science can play a pivotal role in taking this part. Japan, thanks for introducing this entire concept into the forum. Panelists, I would request you, if you would like to add any examples or anecdotes or experience from your side, please feel free to add.
Sure.
Over to you.
So yeah, as just to add on to what Japan said, so maybe a lot of lenders, what they have started to do is, when they do lending, they not only look at the current potential or the current repayment ability of the customer, they also look at that customer from a future growth perspective, especially if we are giving a long-term loan. For example, if it's a housing mortgage, which will probably run for say 20 years. Now the repayment ability of the customer which we have today will not be the same which we'll have over the years. If he's in the right industry, it will probably increase, or if he's a declining industry, it will probably decrease. So here also data science can come into picture, where when we are doing the analysis of a customer, we look at the industry in which he is in and what is the potential of that industry. What is the role he is playing right now? Is he optimally placed in terms of his role with respect to his experience? For example, and a lot of times even with respect to skills. This is one thesis which I have done with few of my students, where we were building investment recommendations, and the recommendations not only spanned across investments, it also spanned across the career advisory. For example, if you say, okay, I have say 10 lakh rupees today, and I want to get to 1 CR over in the next 5 years. So in order for you to get to 1 CR, you need to invest a certain amount of money, which is only possible if you have that certain amount of money with you, which is only possible if you have the right skills at the right job at the right time with the right designation. So it's not only an advisory from the financial perspective, it's also an advisory from a career perspective. That's one aspect. Second aspect, which I think a lot of institutions have started looking into, is using data science in gamification. So you do a lot of analysis of the data and you get the right insights to the customer that, hey, you know what, your age is this, and peers in your age are doing this, and you are in the 65th percentile or 30th percentile or 99th percentile, and you need to do these things right. So I think that is also one aspect which I would just like to add from what Japan said. One more area which is also very important is when we do credit underwriting, right? If you look at the Basel norms of credit risk, we have to predict what will be the expected loss if we do a particular lending, which is nothing but the multiplication of expected EAD, LGD, and PD, probability of default, loss given default, and expected exposure at default. And if we get this calculation wrong, right? If our expected loss is wrong, if we, if we anticipate it to be less than what it should be, then we can, give wrong loan amounts. And if we overestimate it, then we can keep more money to us and not use it in a more optimal way. So lending, financial advisory, career advisory, and gamification are the four other areas which I want to add to what just Japan said.
Thanks, Suvajit, for adding on to that. But I would still hold you for one more minute. I actually want to touch upon a very specific point with relation to the technology and infrastructure. And I need your specific input based on your experience on that. What's kind of technology or infrastructure that banks actually need to do all this data science and everything related to data science, or they have already implemented, if you have any examples on that, or if they need to build it over a period of time, banks and new banks? Please put on that point specifically on the technology side, and then we'll move to the this R&D side also. But yeah, first let's answer the tech part. What is the tech and infrastructure which is required for data science perspective?
So in order to make the data work, we need the data, number one. Number two is we need the right data, number two. Number three is we need an infrastructure through which we can access and expose the data at scale. Like, for example, if I have opened my APIs, which are going to be used by, say, 1,000 consumers, right? And I don't have the infrastructure to scale, I'll run into problems. For example, these days, the biggest problem which we have with respect to especially infrastructure, suppose, for example, in a traditional way, when we used to estimate the infrastructure, we used to say, okay, I am going to have, say, 5,000 users, and I'll, do it optimally. Now the trouble comes the moment you roll out an offer, and suddenly you had estimated for 5,000, 5 lakh users come to your system. Now I have two options. Either I can be super optimistic and provision for those 5 lakh users, which I'll probably use for 2 days in a year, or I find a way where I can scale it and scale it on demand. If you look at, say, a big billion day sales which Amazon, Flipkart, they operate on, it's just the traffic suddenly increases on a couple of days in a year, or maybe these days they are doing it quite regularly, but it's not that every day the same traffic is coming. So in order to make that happen, we need 3-4 different basic hygienes in place. Number one, we have to find ways where we can scale our services on demand. How is it possible? It's possible through usage of microservices, Dockers, containers, Kubernetes. These kind of platforms can scale on demand. Number two, we have to leverage the power of cloud. It's high time that financial industry starts using cloud, because even if, there's a lot of discussions, I see this apprehension within financial institutions and they say, okay, we have problems with cloud and the regulators will not allow. If you read any regulatory guidelines, no one has said that you cannot go to cloud. Everyone has said that you have to have proper controls in place. So you can probably do a hybrid model. Maybe for the time being, you can keep your PII, PCI data on-prem, and then use tokens and reference data mapping and put the rest of the stuff in cloud. So cloud adoption is equally important. So first thing is microservices, containerized applications, cloud. Third application is open APIs, as I have touched upon.
Yeah.
And the moment the open API infrastructure starts coming into place, we also need the infrastructure and the design to be perfectly scalable. For example, I have to build an API gateway. If external calls up, if I have exposed my API over the internet, I run 1,000 kinds of risk. I run risk of security, I run risk of volume, I run risk of performance. So I have to have a proper API gateway, reverse proxy engines in place, so that I can only allow the right set of APIs to come into my ecosystem. Also, I can control that. For example, if 5 consumers are calling me, I can control whom do I give priority to. I can say if my API has a TPS of say 100 transactions per second, I am getting the 100th first one. How do I handle that? Shall I reject it? Shall I hold it? Shall I queue it up? What kind of error messages should I give to my consumers? So API ecosystem, understanding of API gateways, implementation of proper middlewares are also an important aspect. Last but not the least, big data ecosystem. If I am getting so much of data, where do I store it? Traditionally, we used to look at data warehouses where we knew what we want. These days, the problem is we don't even know what data element I'm going to need for future. So the smart way is just put everything in. Use whatever you want to use for reporting, and keep whatever you want to keep for analytics in the in the long run.
Future.
So in analytics space, a lot of times the biggest problem which we face a lot of times is feature selection. I really do not know which features are going to be important for my models. So in order to eliminate that, a lot of times we use our common sense, domain sense, business sense, or we just put all the features, run iterative models, run models like recursive feature elimination selections, and do feature eliminations at scale. Last point we want to put as far as technology is concerned, which is interrelated to the microservices architecture, is once you have deployed the model, how do you monitor the model? How do you generate explanations out of the model? Which is equally important, and you need a robust microservices based architecture. So it's not only opening up your APIs, it's making sure that I am able to retrain my models every now and then, because these days models also experience a lot of drifts. For example, in 2002, the critical feature used to contribute for loan default is not the same which we have in 2015. So machine learning models is just not a one-time activity. I go, build, run, train, select, deploy, and I'm done. I have to continuously monitor my model. I continuously need to see if there's any kind of drift which is happening with my models or not. For it, we need cloud and microservices-based architectures along with proper API gateways. So I think API gateway, cloud, big data, microservices are the 4 levers which will facilitate data science. If any of these levers doesn't work properly, no matter you may have the best data science models, you may have the best data scientists in place, but it's about this entire ecosystem working together.
Great, Suvajit. So you've covered entire spectrum of the architecture or technology which would be required. The architecture becoming the key for entire data, because we don't know about how much data we'll be going to handle. Is very important question. As a product manager or as a product person, every application or every product you make, the one question that is being asked to everyone is, what is the peak throughput per second is being which your system will require. And to answer this, if we don't use the entire architecture in the form of cloud or Kubernetes or Dockers, etc., it becomes too difficult to handle. And you have touched upon that very well. Thank you for that. I would like to keep that question stay there itself, and would like to add on that is we understood this entire tech and infra. The entire neobanking infra will be started from scratch. It will be developed now, unlike the legacy banks who have the data like a Finacle, which is like updated once in 6 years, for example. These neobanks have that advantage. They can build this from scratch and they can put it directly. So how this entire, including that point which Suvajit highlighted, and adding it, how these neobanks can take benefit of this entire tech infra that they can build, and the research, the advancement in the tech and research which is happening to give a complete solution or a new solution to the neobanks. Japan or Siddharth specifically, you have that experience and that background. Please help us to understand that specific point.
Hey, thank you, Umang. So I think Japan mentioned a very interesting point last time, where he mentioned that it took 2 quarters to get the data in the right place. And I'd like to specify on that, right? So I think one of the biggest challenges that utilizing data science in the neobanking space entails is that data is very highly in silos in a lot of these places, right? Like, because point A, most of the banks have their own open APIs that have different data formats. And not just that, like the entire process of onboarding a person onto our banking systems and letting them use transactional data, having third-party integrations, all of these usually reside in different environments. For example, our marketing teams use HubSpot. Our transactional data, we have our own databases, and for third-party integrations, usually we have some sort of APIs that pipe data into our system. And apart from that, we have this entire thing about event streaming. How do we do it? And simultaneously, we also have to understand, what do our business stakeholders or our product stakeholders need? Like, on what frequency do they need this data? Do they need this data immediately? Do they need this data? What is the history of data that they would require, etc., so on and so forth, right? So this building of this architecture to enable all this analytics is probably one of the biggest challenges any data science team faces, right? So I would think that one challenge that everybody has to identify is setting out a data product management, in a sense, like figuring out how do we architecture the solution. Like, do we go for a data warehouse for specific tasks? For what tasks how do we handle event data? Like, how do we, like, one of the biggest, one thing that I believe gives the biggest bang for a buck for any fledgling organization is identifying a event structure that every team uses or every part of the product uses. Because if we don't have that, right, stitching all the events together and getting a full picture of what a user does end to end can be a huge problem to figure out. So if you're a fledgling, if you're starting out building a product and neobanking product, and you want to use data science, the single biggest thing that I think you can start out doing the right way, which will give you a lot of benefits on the line, is identifying how you're going to treat events. Like, what is the structure that you're going to use? Is it going to be common across the all the event pipelines, and where are you going to store the event? How are you going to analyze it? Once you have this figured out, it will solve a lot of headaches that might arise if you don't have this done in the right way. And second is, what are the systems that you're going to use for different types of analysis? So, for example, there's some data that are needed real time, and like, for instance, your success rate, you just worry about it at that point of time, and you don't worry about it later on. So for these, you probably might want to use a different architecture, as opposed, let's say, your information about a particular merchant's behavior that you would want to store for multiple years, and you're probably fine if it's not available real time. So identifying these different things, how they fit in. So for instance, like recently we started using in our own organization, right? We identified that one area where a lot of people were facing struggles with was our analytics pipeline wasn't able to provide very quick information on specific analytical cuts, which we had on AWS. So we identified that most of these use cases were stuff that we knew beforehand. Like, we knew that, like, these are the 10 or 12 different cuts that different people would want to look at, and these are the like, they would want to look at from period A to period B, etc. Right? So we started using this we started moving a bit of data to this technology called Druid that has given us a lot of how would I put it, improvements in the terms of the throughput time in let's say getting some analysis out and stuff like that. So I think that part of figuring out the data architecture, figuring out the requirements, and in a way doing data product management that I think both Suvajit and Japan were touching upon is a key thing for any data organization to get right. Thank you.
That's great. That was a complete input, which we're looking for. I would quickly move on because just to save more time, and we are already crossed most of the part of the discussion which we're planning. Just to save further time, and we want to take some audience queries also if there are any specific queries that they have. I would like to specifically understand from Aditya one specific point. The entire NeoBanking is becoming live, and it's coming into the main space. How the data science related aspect and the decision making that neobanks do basis the data science, how the regulators and auditors view it? Is there any challenge or support that we need from regulators to make this AI for banking a more prominent thing in the market? So would you like to please touch, Aditya, on this specific aspect, the regulators aspect on neobanking and data science together? Yeah, Aditya.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Umang. So I would like to touch upon this point by mentioning certain landmark events that have happened from a regulatory perspective, specifically in India. So back in 2017, the Supreme Court announced that right to privacy would be treated as one of the fundamental rights for the citizens, right? And that judgment went on to explain that key organizations, especially in the financial sector, who deal with data, government should take cognizance to ensure that this right is fulfilled. After a couple of years, this resulted in a very landmark bill passing on a parliament, which is the Personal Data Protection Bill, which was of 2019, that was tabled and passed in the recent years. The key task that it does is that it tries to identify what is personal data and what is non-personal data, and what it does is it tries to identify very strong limits of consent and usage on the personal parts of data. Now there are industry-wide debates on how pragmatic it is, and what is the line between pragmatism and what is the line between application and utility. But the government, from a regulatory perspective, is taking a very cautious stance in terms of privacy, and taking a very slow stance on how to deal with access to personal data and utilizing in the business use cases. But on the other hand, one very fortunate thing which is happening is that there is immense amount of thought leadership and innovation, spearheaded by the government bodies, or with a partnership with entities. So, for example, NPCI, right? We all know the India stack story. How the rollout of UPI, how and all its related API sets was enabled by the government in just a matter of years. And today is India is one of the leaders when it comes to B2C payments, and it's all enabled by that story. And another key element which is coming in is, sorry.
Yeah, right. Just I was just complimenting you. Yeah, continue.
And another key element which is taking shape is if we all know about OCEN, right, which is the Open Credit Enablement Network. So touching back to the credit part, so credit for businesses still largely an untapped, unpenetrated, underserved segment of businesses. Now to solve that problem, this OCEN is taking shape, which is again the government is taking active role. Government has already announced one of the key stakeholders of this network, which is the account aggregators. So 10 banks would take shape in the form of account aggregators. They would be consolidators of information. They've also established frameworks and guidelines for the Sehmati framework, which aggregated information would be shared to service providers, and the leads originating from various parts in the ecosystem would be coming through. So so from a regulatory perspective, while the fundamental rights of the citizens are being taken care of by the policy makers, but at the same time the government is actively participating in thought leadership when it comes to enabling a fintech. Although I feel that we have we still have a long way to go in certain elements from policy perspective, but the picture is taking shape.
Great, Aditya. So you have covered the new stack which is being developed. The earlier stack was Jam, the Jantan Aadhaar, and mobile. The new stack which is being developed, which is your Sehmati or Okane, and all those things you have covered and put forward in this specific discussion. Really great, and actually, this is going to make a change. I completely agree with you on this point. And thanks for from the audience side. You have covered these important aspects. I would request all the audience to just check and get into more detail of these stacks, because these are the new opportunities which are being shaped in the form of Okane or Sahmati and etc. Moving on to the one important part which is comes always when we discuss the data science or the neobanking is the AI and ML. In terms of the AI, ML, and related use cases or the business process transformation that neobanking can bring for the in this space, do you see any blocker to which is holding this entire thing, or any which is holding this entire advancement, and might be regulator, might be the technology, might be the problem statement which new entrepreneurs can actually solve it out for? What's the solution that that are still pending to be solved in this entire space? Is there any blocker? Siddharth, if you'd like to add on this.
Sure. Thanks, Umang. So I think one aspect of AI that is in more mature markets gets better attention is ethics in AI, right? So for example, even if you are going without any bias and stuff like that, because of the inherent problems in the data, you end up like, let's say, not having as much access to certain sections of people as you might like. For instance, let's just give a hypothetical example, right? Imagine you are a person, a housewife who isn't working and uses her husband's credit to do all her businesses. Let's say at some point of time she wants to set out on her own due to whatever reasons, right? This person or this individual does not have any data in the traditional sense that we are tracking, like in terms of her bank information or her PAN information, credit card information, etc. So if we move to a completely AI ML driven model that doesn't take into account these factors, are we able to provide the required services that she might need in terms of loans, in terms of any product that we want to give? This is something that's increasingly becoming a larger point of importance, let's say in markets like the US, the Europe, where AML has matured to some extent in the consumer marketing space. But I believe India as well this is going to be a post lot bigger questions that all of us and all of people working different fields have to figure out a way to answer better. So identifying, like, we do have a lot of data that is available currently, like through initiatives like Ocean, Sahamati, as you mentioned. But how do we help people who are left out, or not just left out due to certain structural problems in our society, don't have equal access to those kind of data sets, right? I think that would be something that we'll have to figure out. And to be fair, I don't think I have an answer to that yet. This is something that's new to me as well. To be fair, I've only recently been reading up about it, and I've realized that there's something that's a large lacune in the Indian talk about AI and ML that we haven't yet focused on. But it'll be interesting to see how companies, not just companies, like different organizations are going to solve it going forward. And that's something that I'm really, really excited to work in and see how people are working towards.
Thank you very much. The discussion cannot be completed without touching about the specific impact or discussion on the point for the COVID. How this recent pandemic is contributing or has impacted the change of thoughts with relation to how the data science to be used, or how the new banking is the evolution is happening. You might, Aditya, you might have a good idea on this background, because you and your team are largely working in this space also in a big detail, specifically in the last one year. Aditya, if you would like to share a few thoughts on this specifically, how the pandemic has impacted your approach and specifically.
So pandemic was one of the key challenging times for across sectors, and even for the financial sector, financial services sector. One of the I would say, rather than a challenge, it was an opportunity for us to. It was a shock which enabled the sector to figure out how to develop new ways to leverage the infrastructure, right? So a couple of examples come to my mind. So, in my previous stint, I've been involved, in a compliance, in a SaaS-based compliance startup, where the typical offering that was to offer, businesses to report, to file their GST in a timely manner, and to, validate the GST data, which is to be done on a monthly basis. And that was a key offering, right? We did partner with financial institutions or NBFCs, for the lending effort, right? As we mentioned earlier, that GST data can be leveraged for an alternate credit decisioning model, right? So we partnered on this basis a lot. So when the pandemic hit, right, there was a systemic shock, and our customers had problems much beyond our offering, right? Compliance to ho jayega, right? Compliance ki baat to sahi hai, but business hi nahi chal raha hai, right? So they were reaching out to all their partners how they could figure out. And a beautiful thing that happened was when we looked back, went back to the drawing board and examined our compliance data. So GST, what it does is it captures the information of both the supplier as well as the customer, right? Purchase side as well as the sales side. Now we noticed that out of 1 million businesses onto our platform who we were catering to, 58% was an internal network. They were trading between themselves, right? This was one data that we had largely missed because of our, business goals, which was purely on, propagating compliance side factors, and we had completely missed this insight. So now we had this ecosystem which was buying and selling from within each other, right? So how and these SMEs typically are non-digitized, right? They don't have access to order generation platforms. They don't have access to the right pricing module, pricing modules or price discovery or the discovery platforms. So what we did is we just deployed a mobile app, which helped immediately these businesses to come online, and then to find the right vendors and suppliers who could still, supply to them, being non-affected by the or deal with the regulations that are there with the transport. So we were able to connect the dots and connect this network and still function in terms of network. And for a compliance company, we generated a GMV of close to 600 crores in 2 quarters, right? So so it was it's a win-win across sectors, right? For all stakeholders. For us, a new business lines opened up. For our customers whom we were servicing only for compliance, an absolutely new a line opened up for their business to function in the limitations of the pandemic, and so on and so forth. So I think a pandemic was an opportunity to again look at the data and figure out, what are the potential ways in which you can effectively help customers at the right point with the right partners.
Thank you very much. Quickly moving to this audience. There are a few queries that they have posted on our comments post. Others also feel free to ask questions if you have anything on your mind. We will discuss for the next set of the time the questions from your side only. Gaurav Das Gupta has asked a very specific question. How is the neobanking industry in India making sure that they have the required skill set resources in the market in respect of data science and ML? So he's coming to the actually how the manpower will be coming, what are the opportunities for the new people who are actually coming out of the colleges, etc., how they can put that required skill set. Just broadening up this question for the panel so that you can cover these aspects also. What new people who are just passing out of the colleges need to learn or build skill set to join this entire new banking and data science field. If you could please, I would request panel to if you like to answer and take this question.
I can take that. So I think, the good news is that with the evolution in technology, they're building earlier the building the machine learning model or implementing the model required very deep engineering, research kind of background and orientation. What has happened over the last couple of years is that because of the evolution of technology, a lot of this building of models, etc., is commoditized. So you look at all the cloud-based solutions. It's not very difficult for someone to just go and learn kind of how to build an ML model and how do you get the data and how do you essentially implement it? I think the bigger juice is actually in the data. So someone from the college, someone who is actually graduating or who's early in the career, I think it's very important that they have a lot of like basic skills to be able to handle with large amount of data, analyze the data, detect the patterns, build the hypothesis, and essentially derive insights. I think this is where I feel there is no specific skill set needed, that I don't need, like technically I don't need an engineering degree, or I don't need the machine learning course. I mean, it's a very basic thing where I need to be comfortable, I need to have structured problem solving, and I need to be able to ask certain questions upfront. That if you're building a product, what are the questions you're going to answer? Who's my customer, and which product my customer wants? And starting from that, you started building some hypothesis. So, when you start building hypothesis, I think the very quickly then you have to start looking at what all data do I need to prove or validate my hypothesis. It's almost like a very long, decades-long thing, right? The hypothesis and the theories that we do and try to prove those theories through certain data points. So having the skill set in terms of ability to process data, analyze data, and driving insights, I think is the core. What we have seen in our company is a lot of people, whether they join from college as a SD1, or they are product managers, or they are analysts, they all, in early days, they show some inclination at some point in dealing with this data and driving the insights, and they then express their interest that now I want to, move forward my career in the data science, and how do I go about it? And what we've been able to do is we've been able to actually give them on the job. We've been able to facilitate certain trainings and certain courses that they can take. And these courses essentially are all about now, I can now teach you what are the different kind of model building techniques that are out there, whether it's a classification problem or linear regression, whatnot. And you can then sort of figure out which model do I want to apply, and then you can use all these tools that are available, technologies that are available to do that. That is one part for any new comers, any college graduates, or any people early in their career, or who have not built a deep data science education background to get into data science. I'm touching on this specifically because I'm assuming that's where part of the audience is and the questions are. Obviously, there's a very structured discipline around ML, and a lot of this starts at a master's and post that. But I don't think you need to wait for that kind of education, formal education, and do this kind of spend a lot of money and do a lot of R&D before you get your feet wet on data science. That's kind of my take on this.
Thank you very much. I'll quickly move to another question from Sanchita Kuchi. Apologies if I pronounce it wrongly. The question that is being asked is, how do you see data science in servicing to the customer? Because it's a trade-off between like if we use the chatbots, for example, Alex or any other chatbot, how will the one bank differentiate from other bank if you're using chatbots with the help of data science and AI ML to answer the queries of the customer? Will it make it commoditize the entire market? Because and one specific point I would like to further add beyond the Sanchita's question is we have this as a bankers, we have heard this multiple times. Let me talk to the person in human. Whenever we have pushed IVR or anything else, one point that has come as always was, please let me talk to the person in person. I don't want to talk to your IVR. With this entire new scenario coming up, that data science and all those things, how you see that banks can leverage or make a USP out of it? Suvajit, if you can please highlight some point from that, and anyone else also from the panel.
Sure. So one thing which I would like to take a cue from the previous question is, as far as the skill set are concerned, apart from technology, machine learning, one very key area which people have to understand and start learning is a deep understanding of the domain. A lot of time we neglect this part, But if you are working, say, a banking or even say an insurance or healthcare or manufacturing, if you don't understand the domain well, then there is actually no point, in building any machine learning models. A lot of time when I talk to, when I have a lot of discussion with a lot of CXO, CTOs, and the first question when I ask them that what's the top on your list in terms of technology preference? So they say AI. I mean, we want to do AI. And the first question when I ask them, tell me an use case, and people start blank. I want to apply AI. I really don't know what's my use case. Also, it takes a lot of understanding in understanding each and every data attribute, each and every data element, what it means. What shall I use when, what, how, where? That understanding is very important. So apart from technology, basic appetite and intuition for data, we also need to understand. And I think this is one area where traditionally we have not been able to do well, is people just don't understand the domain well. If you give a developer a requirement, he will say, what you asked me to do, I have done it. But if you really think through the requirement, there can be a lot of unseen requirements which are given in a form of a particular requirement. So that's the first part. Second part is how do different bank can use the same product in different ways. You spoke about chatbots. So if you look at chatbots, modern day chatbot platforms can literally give you everything which you want to do as far as a banking transaction is concerned. But the primary question is, what do I want to use? What's my roadmap? How is my API readiness in place? For example, you want to do a fund transfer through a chatbot, but your API itself is not ready. What do you do out of that? Right? You want to do some KYC, but your business process management is not integrated and it's not exposed through APIs. You cannot open an account like that. So it's all getting the right ecosystem in place, right processes, right applications, right APIs. All those things basically form the crux of how you want to use the same product in different ways. Also, there's a lot of innovation which is continuously going on. I mean, you spoke about cloud-based models. The problem is, with these cloud-based models is a lot of times I don't even know what models they have used in the background. Right? Do they actually do the drift monitoring every now and then? Right? What features have they actually used? What kind of feature engineering have they actually done? So, though at the end of the day, I may use, say, a XGBoost or say a light GBM, but the path from collecting the data to getting to a light GBM model is a different path for different organizations because the skill set itself are different. Some people look at data science from an engineering perspective. Some people look at data science from a technology perspective. Some people look at data science from a purely domain perspective. So you have to have the right set of skills from engineering, technology, product, domain, and data. You connect all these things, and that builds your entire ecosystem. And that's how companies can actually differentiate themselves. So coming back to the original question, you may have the same product, but it's how you use it makes the difference. Like, for example, in a cricket coaching center, right? The coach is teaching the same things to all the 1,000 people. But we only get one Sachin and one Sehwag and one Virat Kohli. It's how you take it. What is your preparation? That decides, the fate and future of your organization. It's not the product which you are using.
Yeah, just
very good example quoted by you. Yeah. Yeah, please continue.
To what what was mentioned, I think the domain. I can't emphasize enough the depth, the need to go really deep in your domain. Chatbot as a product, technology exists, and all banks will use it. But those are obsessed about customer experience and who are constantly looking at in a chatbot where the customer drop-offs are happening, looking at the funnel constantly and tweaking the flows, right? It's very important. like I think what was mentioned, right? So if you have a chatbot option to make automated payment API is not there, or if it's broken, and if customers just go into the loop on that chatbot where he's again referenced back to contacting customer or keep trying again, it's going to frustrate customers a lot. So that culture is very important, and it goes back to looking at the data, looking at the funnel, analyzing the drop-offs, and acting onto it. And I think what I've seen in my experience is lot of this learning already sits with the customer support. A chatbot. So we in our current journey, we don't have a chatbot. In fact, we can technically very easily put the chatbot in place if we want to, and within a week or two with the technologies that exist. But the danger of putting chatbot is that unless you got your customer flows, deep understanding right, your chatbot will actually do the more harm than the good. So we have to also think of chatbot as just one of the tools, but underlying what you're trying to achieve is the customer experience, which is best, the fastest SLA, the customer answers have to be queried, and their feedback has to be positive. So I just want to highlight that culture differentiates banks and good banks from the average banks, and that will continue to be the case.
Just to add on, to what Japan said, I'll just take 30 seconds. What he said is very important. It's not about just deploying a chatbot. How you use the chatbot is also very important. Like, for example, are you looking at chatbot analytics? Are you looking at what are the most frequent asked questions, from which regions are coming? That can also be a lever for my customer acquisition, my product strategy, for my upselling, cross-selling, which I want to do. So yeah, thanks for bringing that point out.
Quite interesting. Just want to add one more point to the entire discussion from Suvajit and Japan is, yes, depth is important, everything is there, and how you can differentiate is, even in the normal banking, if you take the regular savings account, current account, or loans, whomsoever has survived or done better is because they have just incrementally 10-15% better than what the other lot of the people are doing. So if you have a depth of understanding, or you are bringing out some USP, if you're able to solve that entire problem, or you're able to bring a 15% better solution than what is already existing in the market, in the banking industry, that is good enough to capture the market and you can survive. So just get into the depth and solve something better, which is already there in the market. Once you have that customer obsession, as rightly pointed out, you will be able to crack that piece easily, because most of the answers will automatically come from there. Moving on to the next question from Anand Ruparelia. Data engineers, ML engineers, and data scientists have to be aligned perfectly to process the machine learning ops for getting whole products right. Actually, right. So how important the ML ops culture would be for neobanks? Yeah, that's an interesting tech-related question. Anyone from panel, feel free to answer this thing. The question is, how much is the machine learning ops culture is important for a neobanking space, or anyone playing in the neobanking field?
Okay, I can take it.
Please, Suvajit.
And feel free to, if anyone wants to add, please feel free to. See, let's understand what is MLOps. MLOps is, once my model is built, I have deployed the model as an API for someone to use. I have 2 or 3 primary problems to solve in MLOps. One is, I have to expose this model as an API. Number 2 is, I have to constantly ensure that the performance of the model is good. For example, if I've exposed it as an API and 50,000 people are calling me, I have to have that infrastructure to give the output. Second is a constant retraining of the model. If my model, which I have exposed, a lot of people are calling me, right? And my model is predicting with a certain set of accuracy, how do I improve that? The only way is, once I've deployed the model, all the hits to the model which are coming in, right? I am predicting something. Now I also need to go back and collect the answers in line to my prediction. For example, I have you have asked my model that what is the propensity of this customer buying a product. I give you a certain answer. I also need to capture in some form that what that customer actually did. then only the retraining of the model will be possible, right? So it's not about just training the model with the training data I have. I keep on need to collect the data in production when the model is actually getting called. I need to store those responses, retrain the model, and also observe, which I have said before, if there is a drift in the model or not. Is the model behaving the same way? Is it depending on the same set of independent variables than it is doing today? One more also very interesting concept, which is worth exploring and which has actually come up a long way, is model explanations. Initially, models were all black box. So you give something to the model predicts something. So there was an incident in Europe, when where GDPR is very, very strong. So there was a customer who came to the bank and said, hey, you know what, this is my application. So they had run an automated machine learning model. And we said that, the model said that, no, you cannot give the loan to the customer. Now the customer challenged it and said, give me an explanation, why did you reject my loan? Why did your model say that I have a low chance of repayment? So model explanations is equally important. So to sum up the answer, model deployment, model scaling, model monitoring, model retraining, as well as model explanation. These 5 things actually form the crux of MLOps. And it is very, very important for the organization. Else, so any banking industry will have only 15 problems. We can solve it in 3 months and there will not be any need of any data scientists further. But that's certainly not the case, right?
Completely in sync with you, specifically the how important this entire culture is. You've made it very clear. I'm coming back to the old question from Gaurav, where he was specifically talking about one specific point. When we're using our customers' data, are we also taking his or her consent, which you have just covered at the moment also, so that we can train our models on that in order to make predictions and much more. So he's talking about 2 things, specifically the consent part, which GDPR and the Indian government's data protection bill draft, which they have already shared with everyone in the public. One is that part and consent, and how with the help of this, the predictions can be made better and better with the help of course, machine learning and all those things. If someone would like to please take this question.
Sure. I'll
Yeah.
take that up. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll like to draw attention to one very recent fiasco, for lack of a better term. What happened with WhatsApp, right? So there was this sudden statement being released to users all over the world that WhatsApp would like to start accessing your data, and not in such words, but you should agree to it before a certain time, and this is useful for our service and so and so. And it was a disaster in terms of trust. Although since we have recovered well from that scenario, but there has been a significant loss of trust in terms of what users have. So while but on the face of it, platforms and we as technology service providers also need to access data to provide certain services, right? So it's a complex problem which need to be dealt at 2 levels. One is, we should be absolutely and 100% sure about the regulatory requirements for each and every data access, right? And this doesn't at a philosophical level, we should respect the fundamental rights of the user, that one. And at a business level, this comes across as a great risk in the future if we don't adhere to it, right? That's number one. And the second level is, the customer needs to be 100% sure about what is the value that the platform is offering and how is the data is being used, right? The platform must be 100% transparent in terms of how that platform is utilizing the data, right? Even if the use case is not coming up immediately, but coming up after a certain period of training or timing, right? So I'll give an example. So with one of our competitors, I'll definitely not mention the name. but they introduced this feature while we were in the compliance domain. They introduced this feature where they were offering, a short-term loan based on the GST data that the customers would have, right? And that short-term loan would be based on the invoice discounting model or invoice factoring model. Now suddenly the customer receives this prompt that my invoice, this is your invoice and this is capable. The business owners, the owners of the businesses was to explain this clearly to the customers. They missed out on that step, and there was a big backlash in the market, right? But the right way to implement this approach would have been to take the customer to their journey instead of just taking away just swiping the consent and jumping into a product offering. Take the customer through that journey, right? That the platform suggests that you can access better capital based on this invoice, and we feel you can do like this is upon the particular business to offer that, and then slowly introduce that feature while sticking to the regulatory frameworks and the requirements of gathering content. Yep.
Yes. So the explicit consent and the specifically related to the customer's data should be there largely, and because in India, NeoBanking as such, they will not be able to. In India, there's no license for as such NeoBanking. They have to go and tie up with the traditional bank. So all the traditional banks will entertain those parties more who are more open to the customer who is taking those explicit consents. And that would make more sense for the entire market who's trying to capture the neo-banking space. Someone was wanted to add a few more points on this specific question. Please feel free.
I was just going to add one more point to this. So one is customer consent is in best interest for the company to take it not just from compliance standpoint, which is anyway one aspect because regulations do demand. I think like Aditya said, we have to, for any company, it's very easy for their to lose their trust with customer, if we do something which customers are not aware of. And there are multiple examples that exist in the industry. So one is just it's in best interest for any company to get the consent, and which I think most of the companies should do. But the other point I just want to make was when you look at ML model and when you look at a lot of this training data, etc., a lot of these are quite obfuscated, right? So you're not actually. So if I have to look at, let's say, if I'm using customer zip code as a data point or a feature for arriving at a pattern, at that point I'm not actually looking at a specific customer, right? I'm actually trying to build a model which looks at clustering different customers living in different kind of zip codes, and those clusters are in some sense they're not speaking about customer themselves. So when you do it at scale, what is important is you get the consent and you store customer data in a secure storage, but you also have tools in place and mechanisms in place which then derives data and not sort of use anonymize this data, and which I think is a common practice that most of the companies do. Because ultimately what you're interested in is insights, and the training models, the models ML is built on training models which are also running on these clusters, not on a specific customer, which is also an education and understanding problem. People like naive customers don't understand that, so company has to spend an effort having a clear articulation of how is customers, if I'm collecting your data, how will your data will be used. It's very important to build that sort of clarity in customers' mind. And what is the right time to do it? I think someone said it's at the time of seeking consent. Very clearly articulate in a simple language that we are collecting data for XYZ reasons, and here is how your data will be used.
Thank you very much. Sanchita has asked one more very, very interesting question. I would like to just have all your views on that, and it's important for the audience from the audience perspective. You're talking about so many things like AI, ML, you're talking about cloud, you've talked about Sahmati, OKIN, etc., etc. There's so many things to learn for as an individual, as a mid-manager, or as a person who's joining the industry. What is the thing that you should, in how much depth can I go? Because there's a horizontal line we have covering so many topics. There's a depth that you are asking to get into there for each and everything. So she's seeking a quantitative answer to the subjective question: how much depth should I go? Feel free to answer. It's a very interesting question and important for the audience from the audience perspective. Because you're covering so many topics and then asking to go into depth. That's not possible as a human, and I'm not a supercomputer. Which topic to go into the depth, and how much depth? How should can you help us decide from the audience side?
I'll just
If
take
I-
five seconds answer to it. Have a broad level overview of everything, and pick one or two interest areas where you want to go deep. But what is more important is understand how all these things work together in the ecosystem. Knowing ML without understanding API is of no use. Knowing API without understanding cloud is of no use. Knowing cloud without understanding microservices is of no use. So it's not only about knowing things, it's about thinking all these things together with respect to architecture, ecosystem, products, services, and the organization of the enterprise as a whole. So that's my submission.
Yeah.
so I think,
that's important. I'd like to. Yep. Continue.
I'll just try to quickly summarize my thoughts here. I think Japan, mentioned it about the importance of having domain understanding, and that's what I would recommend as well. If you're a mid manager working in a specific field or looking to get into it, right, just make sure to dive deep into the domain and understand what are the challenges that a particular field or domain faces, and then start working backwards, thinking, okay, like these are challenges that we face, and then you can always reach out to the data community and understand what do I know, should I know to answer these challenges. And that's how I think I would start out with. Deep domain knowledge is one thing that's a non-negotiable. If you don't have deep domain knowledge, irrespective of how much technical understanding you might have, you might not be able to provide meaningful insights.
And you would like to try what's the depth? How will the person can realize that yeah, I have reached that depth?
It's actually very good question, right? I think the answer lies in what is the impact you're generating for the company. What I've seen is people who go really, really deep are able to generate deep insights. These insights are game changer, right? And insights are so powerful that your leadership, your company recognizes the value of it, and you're becoming irreplaceable. So go to that nth level of detail where you have the deepest possible understanding of the customer or what is going on that no one else has. And that level of depth will only come by asking why, like all the time, and going really, really deep into the data and immerse yourself in the data. And I think it doesn't come, this kind of depth does not come by spending a week or a couple of weeks taking a course or reading through a couple of systems. You need to have the breadth, the landscape understanding, but you need to immerse for a long, long time. And there's no easy way out, honestly, for building that depth. So don't be superficial and try to figure out what metric you're moving for the company. The moment you've realized that you're moving this metric, whether it's, let's say, payment success rate, or whether it's, let's say, KYC success rate, or whether it's a customer acquisition in terms of the customers you're acquiring, or whether you are reducing the net default rate, whatever that metric is, pick that metric, obsess over that metric, and figure out how can I move this metric materially for my company.
And this specific answer is applicable to everything beyond data science also. Just use it for anything you want to do in your life. 2 points which we have got from the entire submission, and this was important question, so I'm really highlighting for everyone's sake, is use that specific, that getting into that metric and what is the impact you are creating to get into the depth. But now the problems, as Suvajit also highlighted, now the problems are getting more complex. So if you have in-depth understanding of just one thing, then also you need to to bring a broader solution or bring the solution to the table. You need to touch upon multiple other aspects also. So have that horizontal view also for most of the things. Be a jack of all trades also, and a master of at least one or two things, so that you're able to bring those insights onto the table and bringing real solutions from the sites. I think Aeon is all on the Zoom now, appearing here, so he wants to cut us short and want to say something. Aeon, please go ahead. I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah. So thank you. So I just want to thank Umang for moderating this session so well, and I'm really happy that the session ended on such a high note, that the major crux, what a fresher would want, or data science, a folk who is trying to get into data science would love to hear. So I think that we have tried to end the session on that note, and I would love to thank Suvajit sir, Siddhaarth sir, and Japan sir, and Aditya sir for agreeing to my request to be a part of this event. And I hope that this event was useful for all of us. And thanks, and stay safe. Bye-bye.